Hello. Some of you will have seen a short video I made only a couple of days ago about the state of education here in the UK, or rather, not about the state of education, but about the state education and the extraordinary lengths this government has gone to get as many pupils out of independent schooling as they can, without actually nationalising all the independent educational establishments, arresting the school principals and branding the private school parents as social deviants. My thesis was that Starmer wants to make sure that all the children in this country are indoctrinated with the same political biases, led by teachers who are themselves loudspeakers for the socialist ideology of their unions. I'm sorry to have to tell you that my first, rather conspiratorial idea was probably right. And it all starts here with an article in the Sunday Telegraph, which I'm going to be discussing with you after this short message. I'm granniopteryx. Please click that like on the button underneath this video. Please share it. Please subscribe. Remember, YouTube drops subscriptions, and it would be nice if you'd check that you still are subscribed. If you want to support me financially, all the links to the various ways of doing so are in the description. Take it away, granniopteryx. I came across this article in today's Telegraph, and I'm going to read you a bit of it, not all. It says here, anti-Semitism is rife in UK schools, with more than half Jewish teachers reporting abuse. Jewish teachers have reported increasing instances of swastika graffiti and chants of Free Palestine and, oh, they're so polite here, fuck the Jews. One Jewish teacher said, on multiple occasions, students have shouted Free Palestine at me. Now, you see, a teacher can't expect to exert any sort of authority over students, taunting them with a Nazi slogan. On another occasion, someone shouted, fuck the Jews, outside a meeting of Jewish students. The findings were revealed in a survey of Jewish teachers in the National Association of Schoolmasters Union of Women Teachers, that's the NASUWT, which has more than 300,000 members. The survey found that 51% of Jewish teachers have experienced anti-Semitism in their schools since May 2023. Jewish teaching staff reported being told, it's not racist to say Jews are rich, it's just a fact. While others have faced assumptions that they're Israeli and not British citizens. This is rather important here. The rise in the abuse is being fuelled by dangerous rhetoric. Oh, that's getting in the way. By dangerous rhetoric from the far right, according to Matt Rack, the acting NASUWT General Secretary. Now here I'm going to take a little detour into what is going on with the teachers' unions and who's leading them. First of all, there's Matt Rack, and this is his history. This is the Telegraph, so another paper might have a different idea about him. Matt Rack tried to be the leader of the Fire Brigades Union, didn't succeed. He was ousted for being too radical. But instead, you see, he may have been too radical for the Fire Brigades Union, but he wasn't too radical to take on the largest teachers' union, the NASUWT. And it says here, such a move would make the 62-year-old firebrand the union's first general secretary from a non-teaching background. So he's not even a teacher, he's just an activist. If successful, RAC could by April, now when was this? This was March 2025. If successful, RAC could by April form an ideological partnership with his ally Daniel Kebede. Right, so who is Daniel Kebede? This is Daniel Kebede, the other union biggie. A quick rundown of his aims and ambitions are to be found here. Gillian Keegan was the Education Secretary at the time. This was in April 2023. She's been gathering intelligence on a teaching union's incoming hard-left leader as she comes under pressure to avert school strikes, the Telegraph understands. The Education Secretary is concerned about the prospect of Daniel Kebede taking over as General Secretary of the National Education Union, the NEU, in September. Mr. Kebede, a militant trade unionist and teacher in his mid-30s, urged teachers to build the strikes at the NEU's annual conference in Harrogate this week, which is that this week was in 2023. So that's Daniel Kebede. I think that's enough about the background of the two leaders of the two most significant teachers' unions in the country. And I shall now return to Mr. Rack. Mr. Rack's explanation for anti-Semitism in the teaching profession is that it's the fault of the far right. There we go. The rise in abuse is being fueled by dangerous rhetoric from the far right. Just as Keir Starmer blamed the far right for the Southport event. Those who don't know about Southport, I'll just explain briefly. There was a serious social disturbance after the murder of 3 very young children. It was a spontaneous upheaval from mostly working class people who got the absolutely strange idea that uncontrolled immigration posed a danger to their kids. What a bizarre idea that was. When the turmoil was being put down by the Starmer government, he made a speech blaming this mythical far right and went so far as actually to lie that squads of Nazis were pouring into the area in cars, trains and buses. Trains! That should have been the giveaway, shouldn't it? Who can afford a train nowadays? But I digress. Starmer immediately blamed the far right. It was his default explanation for anything he didn't like or found difficult to handle. And if it wasn't actually there, he felt perfectly entitled to make it up. And in precisely the same way, Matt Rack blames the far right for anti-Semitism in schools. So it's the far right that supports the Free Palestine fashion that's going around now. I'll bet you didn't know that, did you? And the thugs parading out on our streets every Saturday, who started out chanting Free Palestine, are now emboldened enough to be screaming, "Fuck the Jews." That's hardly a socialist ideal, is it? I thought socialists believed in peace and love and stuff. No, Matt Rack's comment about the far right, that is a summing up of all that's wrong with any sort of socialist ideology. Any socialist ideology has an unmitigated incapacity for self-criticism and self-analysis. They just can't do it, and therefore create for themselves an insurmountable obstacle to any sort of self-improvement. This inability to reflect is a characteristic socialists appear to share with Islamic fundamentalists, by the way, which is probably why the two of them get along so well with each other, despite all their superficial differences. Right, so NASUWT is now calling on Bridget Phillipson, the present Education Secretary, to get to grips with the crisis as teachers feel unsupported by their schools. So, back to the main event, which is the appearance of anti-Semitism in schools uncontrolled by unions who blame a sort of pantomime far right, and as long as they're deflected by that sort of fable, they'll be unable to do anything about the real causes because they won't be looking in the right direction. Last week, a report commissioned by the Board of Deputies of British Jews, the country's largest Jewish community organisation, found anti-Semitism to be pervasive in the NHS, at universities and in the arts. The review was co-authored by Lord Mann, the government's anti-Semitism advisor, and Dame Penny Mordaunt, the former Defence Secretary. Writing for The Telegraph, they said they'd been stunned into silence by the evidence gathered during 6 months of research for the Commission on Anti-Semitism. You see, what bothers me is this. Any student of European history will notice that when a country or a society is in trouble, the first thing that happens is anti-Semitism. For some reason, the Jews are to blame for all the problems, so the Jews are driven out or murdered. Yeah, that makes everything right. Well, it doesn't. Lo and behold, the social problems are still there, but missing a section of their most productive and law-abiding members. Now, anyone who's interested should check out the history of Cologne in Germany. When there was some sort of economic crisis, or that could come from, a few bad harvests, or the catastrophic aftermath of an overflow of the River Rhine. That's a thing. It happened all the time. Here's a sort of mock-up of what it looked like in 1700. But it happened all over the place. And so this caused, of course, a terrible amount of not only loss of life, but a lot of economic damage as well. And surprise, surprise, it turned out that the Jews were responsible and they were kicked out, at which point things went from pretty bad to absolutely dire. And a few years later, the good burghers of Cologne were begging the straggling survivors of the murdered Jewish community to please come back. This happened several times. I'm not entirely sure, but it might have been as many as six times that there were massacres, outdrivings, a period of economic stagnation, invite the Jews back. That's okay for a little while, and then another massacre and another expulsion, something like that. That happened several times during a period of around 300 years. Well, that wasn't that good for Cologne. So, back to the schools. After a series of incompetent governments and a flood of immigrants, both of which are causing economic catastrophe and social upheaval, what do you think has happened? Well, we have to blame somebody, don't we? And who are the go-to blamees? Well, here it is. Now, the really interesting thing about this particular attack of a very old virus is that in earlier days it was the working classes, the peasants, who got whipped up about the Jews. In this case, it isn't the working classes at all, it's the middle classes. And that's a very strange difference. I'm not sure how that's going to pan out, but I do have hopes that this difference is the difference which might actually save us from ourselves. Okay, till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.